I first saw her in the mirror, not mine, hers. She was behind me in the reflection, standing just outside the small coffee shop bathroom, waiting. I had accidentally walked into the wrong door, and when I turned around, she smiled like it didn't matter. But the way her eyes lingered on mine, just half a second too long, told me it did. She didn't look like someone waiting for anyone. She looked like someone tired of waiting altogether. Her name was Layla. I didn't know that yet. All I knew then was that she wore grief like jewelry, quiet, expensive, and too close to the skin. 45, maybe older. But not in the way time ages someone, more like the way choices do. I was 26. Too young to matter. Too old to ignore what I felt. We kept bumping into each other after that. Same cafe, different corners. I'd pretend to be reading, she'd pretend not to notice. But sometimes, when she sipped her tea and I turned the page too slowly, our eyes met, and held. It didn't feel innocent. She always dressed in pale colors, as if trying to disappear. But she never did. Not to me. She was the kind of beautiful you don't understand right away. She didn't smile easily, and when she did, it looked like a mistake she quickly corrected. I never asked why she looked so sad. And maybe that's why she started to sit closer. Our conversation started small, a nod, a quiet comment about the weather, the books we weren't really reading. She spoke softly, like her voice had been punished once for being too loud. I listened too carefully, like I was afraid I'd miss something I wasn't supposed to hear. She never wore a ring. But there was always a tension in her jaw when I mentioned anything remotely personal. One rainy afternoon, she sat across from me without asking. Just looked me in the eyes and said, "You remind me of someone I used to know." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Her tone wasn't nostalgic. It was haunted. She stared out the window, watching the rain hit the glass, and whispered, "I used to think I was going to marry someone I loved. Instead, I married someone who paid for the silence." Her hands trembled a little when she said it. She didn't look at me, but she didn't need to. I wasn't breathing. I wanted to reach for her hand. I didn't. I just sat there, soaking in the weight of whatever she had just given me. And then she stood. "Don't wait for me," she said quietly. "You're too young to understand what that means." She left before I could reply. I watched her walk out into the rain, no umbrella, no coat, like she wanted the sky to punish her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her voice, her words, the sadness she wore like a secret. I knew I shouldn't be this drawn to her. I didn't even know what she meant by paid for the silence. But I wanted to find out. I needed to. The next morning, I went back to the cafe. She wasn't there. Just a folded napkin on my usual table. My name written in her handwriting. And underneath it, a hotel key. Room 717. I didn't knock right away. I stood outside room 717, hand hovering, the key card warm in my palm from holding it too long. My heart thudded like I was 17 again, not a grown man who knew better. Not someone who should have walked away when she told me not to wait. But the truth was, I had already waited. And I couldn't make myself leave. When I finally slid the key through the lock, the soft click felt too loud. The room was dim. Curtains half drawn. The scent of her perfume hung in the air, faint jasmine, something older, maybe nostalgic. She was sitting at the small window table, half turned toward the city view, half lost in it. She didn't look surprised. "I didn't think you'd come," she said, not turning around. "I didn't either," I replied. Silence stretched between us, soft but heavy. She finally looked at me, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. "I wasn't trying to tempt you," she said. "I just wanted to see if you'd leave me alone like everyone else." "Do you want me to?" I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked past me. "I got married when I was 19. My father owed money to a man twice his age. I became part of the deal. I didn't realize what that meant until the wedding night. Her voice didn't break, but something behind her eyes did. He was 75. I wasn't allowed to leave the compound without permission. I wasn't allowed to speak unless spoken to. I didn't speak. I couldn't. She stood up and walked to the dresser, picking up a small silver ring. He died last year. Massive stroke in the middle of the night. They buried him with more gold than I ever saw in our entire house growing up. And you? I asked. She shrugged. I was flown back to London. Signed some papers. Got just enough money to disappear. I took a slow step forward. You didn't tempt me, Layla. You terrified me. She looked at me sharply. Why? Because I've never wanted someone who could break me just by walking away. She looked like she might cry. Then she laughed instead, soft, bitter, like she didn't trust the sound of it. You're too young. Too sure. I'm not built for softness anymore. I stepped closer. Then why leave the key? She didn't reply. I reached out, not to pull her in, just to brush her wrist with my fingertips. Her skin was warm. She flinched, but didn't pull away. Her breath caught. I'm not your escape, I whispered. I don't want an escape, she said. I just want one night where I don't feel like someone else's decision. There was a long pause between us, the kind that changes something. She didn't kiss me. But she leaned her forehead against mine, closed her eyes, and whispered, "Don't be kind to me. I'll get used to it." She pulled away first. Barely. Just enough for the air between us to cool again. Her forehead had rested against mine for less than 10 seconds, but it changed everything. I felt her breath on my lips, warm and unsteady. Her hand grazed mine, not by accident. She wanted to touch me. She just didn't want to admit she wanted to. Then, a knock on the door. Sharp. Repeated. Layla's face went cold. Like a mask she'd worn before. She stepped back quickly, motioned me toward the bathroom. I didn't move. "Please," she whispered. The knock turned into a voice, low, male, irritated. "Layla? You're not answering your phone. Open up." I froze. She didn't. She moved with precision, opening the door just enough to slip outside. I caught a glimpse of him, tall, well-dressed, late 50s maybe. Not her dead husband, clearly. But something worse in a way, someone who knew her. I crept closer to the crack in the door. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice carefully blank. "You didn't show for the meeting," the man said. "The family's getting restless. They think you're hiding something." She laughed, short and bitter. "What would I even hide? I gave them everything." "They think you're seeing someone," he said flatly. "A younger man. Someone who's not appropriate." My chest tightened. My face burned. Layla's voice lowered, calm and dangerous. "Then tell them to mind their dead man's money and leave me alone. You're still carrying their name, Layla. And their secrets. You don't get to walk free just because one of them died." He paused. "They're watching you." That line stayed in the room long after he left. She came back inside 5 minutes later. Her expression was unreadable. "You should go," she said, eyes avoiding mine. I didn't move. "Who was he?" "His nephew. He manages the estate. Watches over me like I'm some antique they're afraid will break in the wrong hands." "And me?" I asked. "What am I?" She looked at me then. Finally. Slowly. "Dangerous," she said. That hurt. More than I expected. "So you're just going to disappear again?" Her silence was answer enough. But I didn't want to leave. I crossed the room, stopping just a breath away from her. "You think you're broken." "I don't. I think you're just trying to feel something that doesn't cost you." "Exactly," she said, almost snapping. "You're too expensive, Elias. A pause. Then she added, quieter, because I'd want more. We stood there, the space between us small, but full of everything unsaid. My hand twitched toward hers, but she stepped back again, pressing it against her chest instead. I can't, she said. If they see us again, but you want to, I said. And she didn't deny it. I didn't hear from her for 9 days. Not a message. Not a glance at the cafe. Not even the shadow of her silhouette on the street. I told myself to move on. I even tried. I went out, saw friends, smiled at a girl I didn't mean to smile at. But nothing worked. Layla had taken up residence somewhere between my ribs, not painfully, just unshakably. And then, the voicemail came. 6 seconds. 1 sentence. Please don't come looking for me. But I did. I waited outside the hotel. The one she had chosen, discreet, upscale, invisible to the public. She stepped out with sunglasses on, scarf wrapped tightly, phone pressed to her ear. She saw me and froze mid-step. We didn't speak until we were inside, back in the room. She didn't yell. She didn't hug me. She just sat on the edge of the bed and said, I thought if I stayed away long enough, it'd go away. And? It didn't, she whispered. I stood across the room, hands in my jacket pockets, unsure whether to scream or kiss her. I saw you with her, she said suddenly. Who? The girl. At the cafe. You were laughing. Ah. That. One moment, barely anything. But now her voice had turned sharp. You don't get to be jealous, I said. I'm not, she shot back. I realized something. What? That I don't want to see you with someone who gets to love you in the open. The room went silent. She looked away like she regretted it already. I stepped closer, heart hammering. Say that again. She didn't. So I said what I'd been holding back for too long. I don't care how old you are. I don't care what name they made you carry. I don't care if the whole damn world sees me as your mistake, I'd still want you. She closed her eyes like the words hurt. Or healed. I knelt in front of her. I'm not some boy you pity. I know what this is. Her voice cracked. It's not allowed to be real. But it is. A pause. Then she whispered something I didn't expect. I dream about you. My breath caught. In the dream, she continued, you don't look at me like you're trying to fix me. You just stay. Even when I say all the wrong things. I reached for her hand. She let me take it this time. Her fingers gripped mine too tightly, like she was afraid she'd lose permission any second. I leaned forward. So did she. Lips barely apart. Breaths mingling. And then, a loud knock. Again. But this time, it wasn't a nephew. Open up. Layla, we know he's in there. A voice full of anger. Male. Foreign. Closer to her past than I'd ever been. Her hand slipped from mine. Her face strained. I stood up slowly. This time, I wasn't leaving. Open the door now, or we come in ourselves. The shouting on the other side of the hotel room door wasn't bluff. I could hear it in their voices, authority mixed with entitlement. The kind of men used to getting what they want. Layla stood frozen, her back against the wall. Her lips parted, breath shallow, as if the air itself had betrayed her. She didn't move toward the door. She didn't move toward me either. Layla, I said softly, who are they? She didn't answer. Instead, she picked up her phone, dialed a number with shaking hands. The screen flashed Abdullah. She put it on speaker. He answered instantly. You let him in again. Didn't you? Layla's voice was barely above a whisper. You said you were done watching me. I lied, he said. Cold. Calm. You think we would let a woman walk away with our secrets after what you saw? My stomach dropped. What secrets? I asked, but she didn't look at me. Abdullah's voice was smug now. You thought she was just a widow? No, boy. She was the witness to something that could ruin a bloodline. And now she's running to you like you can protect her? I looked at Layla. Her eyes were glassy. Not afraid, furious. I was never going to tell anyone, she said, through clenched teeth. But now you have something to lose, he replied. And that's when people talk. I stepped between her and the door as if my body alone could stop what was coming. Let them come in, I said quietly. Let them say what they came to say. But I'm not going anywhere. She grabbed my wrist, pulled me toward her, hard. No. You don't understand, she whispered. They're not bluffing. If they can't control me, they'll destroy you instead. Let them try, I said. She laughed, bitter and broken. You're 26. I've lived through things you couldn't imagine. You think love is enough. It's not. I stared at her. Then why did you bring me here? Why the key? Why the napkin? Why the dreams? The door handle jiggled. Layla, I said again, what did you see? Her voice dropped. He didn't die of a stroke. Silence. She took a step back, pressing a shaking hand to her forehead. I didn't kill him. But I watched them do it. And I said nothing. Because it gave me my freedom. The room spun. She met my eyes. You weren't the secret, Elias. I am. The banging at the door grew louder. And then, suddenly, it stopped. No shouting. No footsteps. Just silence. Layla looked toward the peephole and went pale. She backed away slowly. What is it? I asked. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Finally, it's not them. I stepped toward the door. And she grabbed my arm, hard. Don't. She clutched my arm with fingers that trembled. Her breath hitched in her throat, and the fear in her eyes wasn't for herself, it was for me. They sent someone else, she whispered. Someone who doesn't knock twice. I didn't ask what that meant. I saw it in her face, this wasn't the first time she'd been hunted for someone else's secrets. I stepped away from the door slowly, watching her, not the handle. We have two options, I said, voice low. We run. Or we tell the truth. She let out a bitter laugh. There is no truth, Elias. Only stories they let people survive long enough to tell. A long silence stretched between us. And then, click. The door began to open. Layla didn't scream. She didn't move. I did. I stepped in front of her again. But when the door opened, there was no armed guard. Just a boy. Barely 18. Thin, nervous. Holding a small envelope. He looked at me, startled, then quickly looked down. This is for her, he mumbled, shoving the envelope forward and disappearing before we could speak. Layla took it with shaking hands. Inside, a folded photo. A younger version of her. A man beside her. Not the one she married, someone gentler, softer. There was writing on the back. In Arabic. She stared at it for a long time. Her lips moved like she was trying to read it out loud, but the words got stuck. What is it? I asked. She held it out. I turned it over. You were never meant to be theirs. You were always free. Tears welled in her eyes, not the kind that fall, but the kind that choke. My brother, she said finally. He disappeared the week I got married. I thought they'd killed him. She looked up at me like she didn't know what to believe anymore. Then she said it. I've been running for so long. I don't remember what it feels like to be with someone. Not under them. Not beneath them. Just beside them. I took her hand. She didn't pull away. You don't have to say anything else, I said. But if you choose me, we leave now. No more hiding. Her voice was small. What if I ruin you? You already did, I smiled, and I still want more. She kissed me then. It wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was desperate. Honest. Full of every fear she'd swallowed, every night she thought love was gone for good. She tasted like salt and smoke and finally choosing herself. We broke apart only when the phone rang. We didn't answer it. Instead, she looked at me, eyes wide, scared, alive, and whispered, "Okay. I'm in." "Where do we go?" I asked. Her lips parted, then curved into the smallest smile I'd ever seen her wear. Anywhere without walls. We didn't run in the middle of the night, that would have been too dramatic, too loud for the kind of escape we needed. Instead, we left at sunrise. Layla wore no makeup, no scarf, no disguise. Just jeans and a linen shirt. For once, she didn't try to disappear into herself. She didn't look over her shoulder. She didn't flinch when I touched her hand. She only looked forward. We drove south for hours. No phones. No GPS. Just the road and a silence that didn't feel heavy anymore, just real. At a small gas station, I bought her a paper coffee cup and a terrible blueberry muffin. She smiled like I'd handed her diamonds. "This is the first breakfast I've had without permission," she said, and I watched her take the smallest, slowest bite like it was holy. Freedom is weird like that. It shows up in quiet things. Cheap pastries. Unfinished conversations. Air that doesn't feel like it's watching you. We rented a small seaside cottage. White shutters. Peeling paint. A mattress on the floor. No expectations. Just space. At night, we didn't talk much. But sometimes she would roll onto her side and whisper things she'd never said out loud before, about her first kiss at 16, the time she almost ran away with a girl she met at university, the way her husband's hand never felt like love. I told her about my mother's silence, the professor I once almost kissed, and how I'd never known what real hunger felt like until I couldn't see her face for 9 days. She didn't say "I love you." I didn't either. We didn't have to yet. It was enough to exist in the same room, under the same sky, without fear. And then one morning, while she was making tea, she asked me quietly, if I ever decide to go back, not to them, but to face them, would you stay? I looked at her, standing barefoot in the kitchen, hair a mess, sleeves rolled up like a woman who was done being invisible, and I said, I'd wait outside the courthouse, the embassy, or hell itself. She nodded like she believed me. Maybe for the first time. We don't know what's next. There are still threats. There are still questions. But there are also blueberry muffins. Sunrises. Her hand finding mine in the dark. A photograph of her brother framed on the shelf. And the soft sound of her laughing when she forgets she used to be someone else's property. I didn't rescue her. She didn't save me. We just met in the wreckage and chose to stay. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Let me know in the comments. Your next favorite story might be just one idea away. Speech balloon sparkles.